So, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome. Today, we're exploring what happens when learning becomes experiential through spatial computing. Now, what used to take months to prototype can now be built in weeks, and what used to be experimental is now operational. Immersive tools are no longer side projects. They are becoming performance drivers. Today, Lucky and Ash will share how they built a platform that reduced sales closure timelines by over 200%. So let me introduce our speakers for today. Lucky Lance Gobindram, who's co-founder and president of Kinemeric. We have Ash Gobindram, co-founder and CEO of Kinemeric. And they have been building enterprise technology solutions for over 15 years. Now, today's conversation focuses on how organizations are moving from observing spatial tools to integrating them into learning, sales enablement, and field training. This is not about future tech. This is about what is already working and how teams can begin within the next quarter. So we're going to go into, first of all, why spatial and why now? So I want to start with a simple question for both of you. And when did spatial computing click for you? The moment it stopped being aspirational technology and became a clear path to accelerating business outcomes?
Sure. For me, Melissa, it was Thanksgiving 2014. So this was the launch of Google Cardboard, and shortly after, Samsung launched the Gear VR.
Yeah.
Ash and I started tinkering and playing. We built a Google Cardboard. It was a pretty exciting moment for me and Ash. You know, it shifted the way we looked at technology, right? Because now you're no longer just clicking through text and doing things, you're experiencing things. So it shifted the paradigm of how we learn, we consume, and we just, be part of the growth of learning. So, behavior transfer was no longer something that had to happen through, watching a video or clicking through a slide deck. It could be designed for, right? You could experience it, you could become one with it, and it would shift that learning curve for the end user.
For me, Melissa, I think there were a couple of moments, a couple that ran in parallel early on. So internally at our organization, we started to do two things up front. We started to engage with a game that's available on the MetaQuest platform called Onward. And we used to use that as, and we still do today, as a company team building event weekly. We spend an hour in there together, and it's a combat platform, but really the sense of presence it provided was super interesting to us. In parallel, we started to use the Horizon Workrooms solution, which is now being end-of-lifed, but to us, the transference of presence and the ability to get the whole team that's decentralized globally in the same room, that was really an important moment for us and really clicked. And then as we progressed over the last couple of years, as the LLM revolution started to become more real about 2 years ago, we wanted to see if we could transcend that sense of presence into a believable human, if you will. And we started to tie in LLMs to humanoid avatars in spatial. And that was another real proof point for us that these could become meaningful tools.
Yeah, that's awesome, because what I notice is that, everything is, you realize that reps are learning by doing. And to your point about AI, right? It's when, the AI-driven responses become, they change the outcomes for you guys too, with the large language models and such.
Absolutely. Transcending that sense of presence, because the AI powered it, that allowed us to really open some gates in our minds.
Yeah. So I would like to think about the shift in the ecosystem. So what signals told you that spatial computing had moved from experimental to crucial?
Sure.
Yeah.
You want to start?
So, happy to. So 2020, another big inflection point. It was the Quest 2, right? And all of a sudden you went from 3 DOF to 6 DOF. So now you have this full range of motion. You're able to really experience something, right? It's no longer you're sitting first person and you're watching a video and which was great, don't get me wrong, but like all of a sudden you're in it and you're part of it. And that's a game changer when you start thinking about when you're learning and you're taking instruction or you're being onboarded to an organization, whatever you may have it. It's very, very different, right? And I think that's a huge, huge, huge benefit.
Yeah, to echo that, the Quest 2 was super important for us. We thought it did a lot of things super well and it made a lot of things real. Internally, our own continued experimentation of building believable humans as models got better, and we started to better fine-tune our orchestration layer, and we were having meaningful exchanges with these humanoids and these believable humans. That was another real big proof point for us. And then more recently, the Vision Pro and its snappiness and its overall experience, your ability to jump into a spatial FaceTime call in under 10 seconds and be in a room or your room with people who are in California and Singapore, that was really meaningful for us.
Great. So all of those signals point to the same shift, where organizations stopped asking, is this possible? But rather they started asking, where is our current training breaking down and how do we fix that, right? So let's ground this in reality and think about enterprise challenges to measurable impact. When organizations come to you, what problems are they actually trying to solve?
Sure, you want to start there, Locke?
Yeah, so before the Kinemeric platform or technology where it is today and the inflection of XR and AI, right, it was limited to slides and role play in person, which we all know is super awkward, right? When you're trying to come into a job in a capacity, whether it be sales or whatever you may have it, clicking through a deck, watching videos as you are on your phone, giving it half your attention, which is, good, but it's not great. It's bad for the business, actually, right? Because the retention rates are much lower. And I mean, it's awkward when you try to teach somebody by role playing in a room, right? It's kind of uncomfortable.
And it's also limited, right? Human capital is limited, time is limited, and there are valuable experiences in that kind of role playing, but it's hard to scale. So for us, with some of the experimentation we were doing and some of these different ingredients coming together, we asked ourselves, how could we actually create a platformized solution that was additive and augmentative to these learning and training organizations at these companies to provide a safe space and a believable experience that yielded the best of those actual role-playing and instructor-led sessions, but in a scalable manner. And that's really, kind of where Kinemeric is focused in our core mission today, and that's how the Kinemeric platform kind of started.
Great. So yeah, it just made me think about how, when it comes to, the passiveness of learning, like the traditional approaches, and then how your platform enables them to be in the environment. And for an overthinker like myself, I need a platform like this where I can actually be less inhibited about making those mistakes and actually getting that feedback, so which
Absolutely.
is awesome. Yeah.
And we see the data prove that, right? Traditional learning mediums, people tend to forget almost 50% of what they've learned 72 hours afterwards. So experiential learning really bridges that for a lot of people.
For sure. And so let's, have a use case that you've got right now, right? So rather than keep this abstract, let's make it concrete. So would either of you be able to walk us through Linda's construction as a proof point?
Sure.
Yeah, happy to ground this in data for you. So an organization like Linda's Construction, based out of Wisconsin, they hire about 30 sales reps a year on average, right? And each sales rep over the first couple of weeks will be given 15 leads. A lead costs that business about $500, right? So if you do the simple math of 30 sales reps, 15 leads, that's about $250,000 USD a year. That's no small number or a drop in a bucket, right? It's real money. Now, once we deployed this tool to Linda's, we started measuring what that impact is, right? And before the platform, it would take them 3 to 4 weeks to close their first deal, right? With our platform, they're closing a deal in the first week. And the other part of it here is they have a safe space to practice, right? They're not burning real leads. They can go and practice as many times as they want, build the muscle memory it is and required to be successful at the job, and then go out there in the real world and achieve goals for the business that have real impact, right? So it's measurable that you can see clearly that it changes the dynamic of their sales force, their business, then their ability to make a real difference in their process, right? And we're seeing that in real time today, and it's huge. I mean, they are excited, and they are continuing to deploy that at scale.
Absolutely. I mean, we actually, rather than just talk about it, we have a little video here of a trainee in a multi-agent scenario. So we'll go ahead and show that to you.
I was wondering though, when you're doing a full roof replacement, how long does that typically take? Are we talking a day or more like a few days?
Basically, the measurements that I took while I was on your roof kind of gives me a rough ballpark, and what I'm guessing now is probably about 3 to 4 days. A day of takedown, 2 days to put it in, and then a final day of spot check, cleaning, make sure everything is tight. We'll have like management come, they'll do a spot check, and then we'll make sure that every loose nail and bit of debris is out of here.
Got it. So roughly 3 to 4 days from start to finish, with cleanup included. That's helpful to know.
Yeah, exactly. And we'll give you guys a heads up, usually about a week or so out when we're available to do it, and then it's up to you to schedule it, at your convenience.
Got it. That gives us some flexibility to plan around it, which is helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. And also, you might want to let your neighbors know, maybe bake them a pie or something like that. Let them know there's going to be a lot of racket coming from over here.
Yeah, a heads up to the neighbors sounds like a good idea. I'm sure they'll appreciate the warning about the noise.
And the pie.
Yeah, the pie might sweeten the deal. Noise is one thing, but no one turns down a good pie.
Yeah, this is a really awesome proof of concept that, what I really liked about it was that you can actually see the feedback and you can actually analyze it after, which is so impactful because when you really think about it, you can actually show the measurable ROI and the impact on top of it.
Absolutely, which is key.
Yeah. And I think for me, I would have loved to see all of that. So this was fantastic, use case for sure.
Thank you.
Yeah, and so now let's contrast that with a mixed reality deployment, where the challenge is not confidence through repetition, but decision making in context. So could you share with us a little bit more about that?
Sure. So for us, with some of the initial successes we had with providing a virtual safe space for trainees to, build confidence and practice their sales pitch, and providing those details, we asked ourselves, how could we extend that to not only provide a safe space where they could practice, but also for them to bring in a trainer, if you will, into their own space and be able to interact with it at their own rate and really learn the material, practice, those product propositions in a repeatable way, ask questions in their own unique way, and really be able to learn the concepts, their products in a 360 fashion at their own speed whenever they needed to. Going back to the limitation of human capital, you have access to a trainer at your organization during the day, maybe for an hour during a session, but you may have more questions. You may feel, hesitant to ask those questions in public forums. So how can we extend the platform to provide those same things, but in a safe space and on demand to the trainee? So that's kind of what we're doing right now with our mixed reality deployments, Melissa.
Could you show us
Yeah, sure.
demo,
we have a short video on this one as well to give you an idea of how that works. So in this video, what you'll see is the trainee has gone through a lot of the initial learning, and now they're in a feedback loop, and they're going back and forth with the actual trainer agent to understand how they performed and where they have room for improvement.
Ready for the breakdown?
Yes, please.
All right. First off, you nailed the system components and tied them together as a full protection package. That's key. You also made a smooth emotional pivot, talking about the homeowner's peace of mind. Does that part make sense so far?
Yeah, I think so. I felt pretty good about it.
Great. Now, one area to improve. When you handle objections, make sure you really emphasize the value of the Golden Pledge warranty in a clear, punchy way. Don't let that get lost. Got it?
Yeah, I mean, compared to what I said, how would you say it differently?
I'd hit them with a line like, with the Golden Pledge, you're looking at 50 years of material coverage and 25 years of workmanship, backed by GAF. Short, confident, and right to the point. Make sense?
Yeah, I guess, what do you do if they've just never heard of GAF? How do you make GAF sound so impressive?
Good question. You lean on our track record. Something like, GAF's been leading roofing innovation for over a century, and they're the largest roofing manufacturer in North America. That builds instant credibility. Feel that difference?
Yeah, definitely. That's super helpful.
So what I appreciated about this part is that when you are in conversation like this, the AI is responding in real time and giving you exactly what to say, what to do, and it's that, as you said, throughout this whole session, it's the real-time feedback, and I can actually, rehearse it again if I wanted to. So, I would say VR builds confidence through rehearsal. That's one proof point. And then for the mixed reality, it sharpens that judgment and
Absolutely.
in the flow of work. And together, I feel like this is how capability will stick, and that
For sure.
behavior transfer will happen in real time after.
And we find that the
Yeah.
trainees, they really like interacting with the believable humans and the agents. So, once they get through that initial novelty of it, they really see the value in it, and they continue to go back in a repeated fashion.
And that's what makes it scalable, which brings up my next point about architecture
Sure.
and scalability, right? So, Ash, so at scale, what makes embodied AI agents viable across large organizations?
Sure. So for us, it's really, I would say the most important of all is balancing consistency with the variability, right? Because a big mission, for us is the believability of these simulations and scenarios. You want variability in the dynamicism in each session. However, because we're trying to drive towards enterprise or corporate goals, we want that consistency as well. We want to make sure that we're driving improved behavior to a particular set of KPIs. So balancing those two sides of the coin is really, really important to us. And then, a layer deeper is having meaningful insights and analytics that provide the trainers and their managers real insights as to how their trainees are performing. That is super important. And then, a little bit lower is your typical kinds of, enterprise concerns, like how fast can we iterate? How fast can we add to these lessons? And then a layer below that is your typical kind of stuff, security, deployability, etc. But, for us, it's really that balancing the two sides of that initial coin. That's what we see as the most important objective here, Melissa.
Perfect. Yeah, and the branching scenarios as well, as a designer or anything like that, they get to look at your data and they can say, oh, what's the gap and what's the next step and how we can, optimize the learning.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So right now we're starting to work a lot on adaptive behavior that is tailored to particular trainees. So we don't see that in the platform today, but the agents will start to begin to tailor their actual, the way they handle themselves according to that specific trainee.
Awesome. So, so let's look at the next quarter, right? So one sentence each. What should organizations do in the next 90 days to prepare for a spatial future?
I would tell them to start with a problem, right? Look at a business problem within your organization and start there.
Yeah, to build on top of that, I think Lucky's dead on. I would say, find that problem area that you think is ripe to start to tackle, and then whether you have the capabilities internally at your organization or you need to isolate, a good partner, I would start to prototype, and really, start to experience and validate my thesis, and then start to iterate from there. So that's kind of how I would see it, Melissa.
Yeah, so from my perspective, your teams already think spatially because of the context they're in, right? This technology will just simply meet them where they're at. And the usability and the comfort is so important. The UX, along with the cognitive load, those two are really important to prepare for a spatial future because you look at the business outcome alongside with everything, and they all need to be in alignment. So I guess that's my take on that. To close things off, the medium is evolving, and you do not need to be an expert. You simply need to begin. Start small, test quickly, and scale what works. At the moment right now, we're happy to take questions from the room, so feel free to ask us some questions. Anyone? Yes.
For a business that is looking to implement like an XR solution into their business, do you recommend any places for them to look for particular like companies that can support them, or is there kind of like a XR company search, I guess? Does that make sense? Like where could they go to find the different options? Because sometimes they're like, well, there's 5 different, companies that could help me with this particular project. How do I find them?
Sure, you want to take that, Lot?
Sure. I mean, I think there's a couple ways that you could start there, right? Depending on your problem and where you're located, I would look at who are the leaders in that market, for one. I think local help is helpful when you can work shoulder to shoulder with people as you're prototyping and looking at things and testing it. I'd also think about, people have different domains of expertise. Like Ash and I are obviously focused on a very specific problem, right? We're looking at soft skills, simulations, and that could be a wide range of things. The cases you looked at right now are focused on sales and training of sales organizations or similar soft skills, right? But if you have a hard skills problem or something, there are people that specified in, what it'd be in that regard, right? So I would look for people that are really hyper-focused and have built muscle memory around that because they can transfer their knowledge and what they've learned and gained by implementing such solutions.
Any other questions? Okay. All right. So, if you would like to continue the conversation after the session, feel free to come speak with us, or you can scan our respective QR codes to reach out to us.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.